Hello, my friends. My name is John, and today I want to tell you a story. This story is about a small adventure I had in a big city. It was a little scary, but also exciting. One day, I traveled to a new city. The city was very big and full of tall buildings, busy streets, and many people. There were cars, buses, and bicycles everywhere. The roads were wide, and there were bright lights shining from shops and restaurants. The city was loud, with people talking, car horns beeping, and music playing from stores. I came to this city for a short trip. I wanted to explore, see new places, and try some delicious food. I also wanted to practice my English because many people in this city spoke English. I was excited, but also a little nervous because I was alone. At first, everything was fine. I walked around, looking at beautiful buildings and famous places. I took pictures, smiled at people, and enjoyed the fresh air. The city had many things to see: tall towers, busy markets, and parks with green trees. The smell of coffee and fresh bread came from small cafes, and I could hear street musicians playing soft music. I felt happy. I thought, this is a great day. I am going to have so much fun. But then, something happened. Something I did not expect. I got lost. And that is where my adventure really began. I was walking through the city, feeling excited and full of energy. Everything around me was new, different, and interesting. There were so many things to see: tall glass buildings reflecting the sunlight, small old shops selling souvenirs, and large billboards with bright advertisements. People were walking quickly, some talking on their phones, others carrying shopping bags or drinking coffee. The air smelled like fresh bread from a bakery, mixed with the strong aroma of coffee coming from a nearby cafe. It was a beautiful day, and I felt happy to be in this place. I had no exact plan for where I was going. I just wanted to explore, enjoy the view, and take in the city's energy. I walked past small bookstores, clothing shops, and restaurants with outdoor seating. The sound of cars, bicycle bells, and people chatting filled the air. I wasn't worried about where I was because I thought I could easily find my way back. After a while, I decided to turn onto a smaller street. It was quieter, with fewer people walking around. There were trees on both sides, and the buildings looked older, with beautiful designs on the windows and doors. I took my phone out and snapped a few pictures. This city is amazing, I thought. I should keep walking and see more. I continued walking, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of the smaller street. Then I reached a crossroads. I could go left, right, or straight. I paused for a moment and thought, which way should I go? I didn't recognize anything around me, but I felt adventurous. So I chose a random direction and kept walking. The street slowly became busier again, with more people and more shops. There were street vendors selling fruit, juice, and snacks. A man was playing the guitar on the sidewalk, and a small crowd had gathered around him. I smiled and listened for a few moments before continuing. But then, something strange happened. I looked around and realized that nothing seemed familiar. I had been walking for a long time without thinking about where I was going. I didn't see any landmarks that I remembered. The buildings all looked similar, and the streets were starting to confuse me. I stopped walking and turned around. I tried to remember which way I had come from. Did I turn left earlier? Or was it right? I wasn't sure anymore. I looked at the street signs, but I didn't recognize the names. A small feeling of worry started to grow inside me. I took a deep breath. Okay, no need to panic, I told myself. I just need to find my way back. I'll retrace my steps. I turned around and started walking back the way I thought I had come. But after a few minutes, I realized something even worse. I was not going back the right way. The buildings looked different. The people around me were different. The street signs were different. I had no idea where I was. I stopped walking and checked my pockets for my phone. I'll just use Google Maps and find my hotel, I thought. I pulled out my phone and pressed the power button. The screen lit up for a moment, then turned black. Battery low, shutting down. My phone was dead. Now I had no phone, no map, and no idea where I was. Panic started to rise inside me. My heart began to beat faster. I tried to stay calm, but my mind was racing. What should I do? I looked around, hoping to see something familiar, but nothing looked the same. I decided to ask someone for help. I saw a man in a business suit walking quickly down the street. He looked busy, but I had no other choice. I stepped forward and said, "Excuse me, sir, can you help me? I think I'm lost." The man barely looked at me. He glanced at his watch and said, "Sorry, I don't have time," before walking away. I felt a little nervous now. What if I can't find my way back? I walked a little more and saw an old woman sitting on a bench. She had a kind face, and I hoped she could help me. I approached her and said, "Excuse me, do you know where the Grand City Hotel is?" She smiled at me, but then spoke in a language I didn't understand. She pointed in one direction, but I wasn't sure if she really knew where the hotel was. Now, I felt even more lost than before. I walked to the corner of the street and looked in all directions. Tall buildings, cars, people. Everything looked the same. I tried to remember the way I had come, but my memory was blank. I had been walking for too long, turning in too many different directions. The city, which had felt exciting and fun just an hour ago, now felt big and confusing. The people around me were rushing to their destinations, and no one seemed to notice that I was lost. I needed a plan. I couldn't just walk around aimlessly. I thought of 3 possible solutions: find a police officer or a tourist information center. Maybe they could help me. Try to find a cafe with Wi-Fi. If I could charge my phone, I could use Google Maps. Ask more people for directions. Maybe someone would know where my hotel was. I took another deep breath and told myself, "Okay, James, don't give up. You will find your way back. You just need to think carefully." Then I saw something that gave me hope. A large sign in the distance. It looked like a map of the city. I hurried toward it, hoping that it would help me find my way. I stood on the sidewalk, feeling completely lost. People were walking past me quickly, focused on their own lives. Some were talking on the phone, some were carrying shopping bags, and others were rushing to cross the street before the traffic light turned red. No one seemed to notice that I was standing still, looking around, unsure of what to do next. I took a deep breath and told myself, I can do this. I just need to ask for help. The first person I saw was a young woman sitting on a bench, looking at her phone. She seemed relaxed, so I walked up to her and said, "Excuse me, can you help me? I am lost." She looked up and smiled. "Sure. Where do you need to go?" I suddenly realized my mistake. I didn't remember the exact name of my hotel. My mind went blank for a moment, and I tried to think. My hotel is near a park, and it has a big glass entrance," I said, feeling a little embarrassed. She frowned. "There are many hotels like that in this city. Do you remember the name?" I shook my head. "No, I forgot." She thought for a moment and said, "Maybe you can try asking someone else. Or check a map?" I thanked her and walked away, feeling frustrated. I needed to be more specific. The next person I asked was an old man who was feeding birds in the park. He had a kind face, so I felt comfortable approaching him. "Excuse me, sir. Can you help me find my hotel? I forgot the name, but it is near a big park." The man smiled and nodded. "Ah, there are 3 big parks in this city. Do you remember anything else? Maybe the street name?" I sighed. "No, I don't remember." The man pointed in 2 different directions. "One park is that way, and another park is that way. You can try walking and see if you recognize something." It wasn't a perfect answer, but at least it gave me some direction. I thanked him and decided to walk towards one of the parks. As I walked, I paid attention to the street signs. I didn't recognize any of the names, but I knew that my hotel was on a street with many restaurants. I looked around. There were cafes, clothing stores, and small markets, but no restaurants. I saw a street sign with a long name and tried to remember if I had seen it before. Maybe I walked past this street earlier, or maybe not. Everything looked so similar. Then I had an idea. I remembered that some cities have big maps placed on the sidewalks for tourists. Maybe I could find one. I started looking around, hoping to see a city map somewhere. After walking for a few minutes, I finally saw one. It was a large map inside a glass case, showing all the streets and important places in the city. I felt relieved. I looked at the map carefully. My hotel had a big shopping mall nearby. I scanned the map, looking for malls. There were several, but one of them was next to a large park. That must be the one. Now I needed to figure out how to get there. The map had a "You are here" marker, so I found my location and traced a route with my finger. I had to walk straight for 3 blocks, then turn left. I followed the map's directions carefully. As I walked, I checked every street sign to make sure I was going the right way. I kept repeating the directions in my head: 3 blocks straight, then turn left. 3 blocks straight, then turn left. After walking for a while, I reached the corner where I needed to turn. I looked around and saw something that made me feel hopeful. There was a sign for a shopping mall. I walked faster, excited to finally recognize something. The road became busier, with more people carrying shopping bags. The air smelled like food, and I saw a restaurant that looked familiar. Then, suddenly, I saw it. My hotel. I felt a huge wave of relief wash over me. My legs were tired from all the walking, and I was still a little stressed, but I had done it. I had found my way back without a phone, just by asking people and using a map. I walked through the entrance, smiling. The receptionist at the front desk saw me and said, "Welcome back, sir." I laughed and said, "Thank you. I had a little adventure today." She smiled. "That happens a lot in this city, but getting lost is a great way to learn." I nodded. She was right. I had learned something important that day, not only about the city, but also about myself. And from that day on, I always made sure to remember my hotel's name and carry a phone charger. After finally making it back to my hotel, I sat down in the lobby, feeling exhausted, but also strangely happy. My legs were sore from walking so much, and my mind was still a little tired from the stress of getting lost. But at the same time, I felt proud of myself. I had found my way back without using my phone, and I had done it by talking to people, reading signs, and thinking carefully about my surroundings. I leaned back in the soft chair and took a deep breath. Wow, what a day! Then I started thinking about everything that had happened. At first, I had been so excited to explore the city. I walked around, enjoying the sights, sounds, and smells. But then I had gotten lost, and for a little while I felt scared and nervous. I didn't know where to go, and my phone had died. I had no map, no clear memory of my hotel's name, and no one to call for help. But instead of panicking, I had tried to stay calm. I had asked people for help, even though I wasn't sure if they would understand me. I had looked at street signs, paid attention to landmarks, and found a city map to guide me. Step by step, I had figured out how to get back. And in the process, I had learned so much. One of the most surprising things about this experience was how much English I learned just by talking to people. Every time I asked for directions, I had to think about the right words to use. I had to make sure my sentences were clear and simple. And when people answered me, I had to listen carefully to understand their instructions. For example, when I spoke to the young woman on the bench, she had asked me, "Where do you need to go?" That was a simple question, but in that moment, my mind was so stressed that I almost didn't know how to answer. I had to quickly think about how to explain my problem. Then, when I talked to the old man in the park, he had said, "There are 3 big parks in this city." That made me realize that just saying, "My hotel is near a park," was not enough information. I had to be more specific. When I looked at the city map, I saw many new words like intersection, avenue, boulevard, and landmark. These were all words I had seen before, but now I was really paying attention to their meaning. I realized that learning these words was important if I wanted to explore a new city without getting lost again. Even reading the street signs helped me improve my English. Some signs said "one way" or "no entry," while others had directions like "pedestrian crossing" or "subway entrance." I had always known these words in theory, but now I was actually using them in real life. That made them feel much more meaningful. I smiled as I thought about all the new words I had learned. maybe getting lost was actually a good thing. Before this experience, I sometimes felt shy about speaking English with strangers. I worried that I might make mistakes, or that people wouldn't understand me. But after today, I realized that speaking English wasn't as scary as I thought. I had talked to multiple people, and even though I didn't always say everything perfectly, they had understood me. I had used simple words and short sentences, but that was enough to communicate. I remembered when I spoke to the woman on the bench. At first, I had felt nervous, but when she smiled and answered me kindly, I felt more comfortable. That gave me the confidence to talk to the old man in the park, and then later to check the city map. This experience showed me that English is not just something we learn in books or classrooms. It is something we use in real life, to communicate, to ask for help, and to find solutions. I had used my English skills to solve a real problem, and that made me feel more confident. I thought, if I can ask for directions in a busy city and understand people's answers, then I can have conversations in English anywhere. This was a big moment for me. I no longer felt afraid of speaking English. In fact, I wanted to practice more. Before today, I had always thought that getting lost was a bad thing. I had always imagined it as something scary and stressful. But now, I saw it in a different way. Getting lost had actually helped me in many ways. It had made me more observant. It had forced me to pay attention to the details around me. Street names, building signs, landmarks, and even the general direction I was walking in. I had learned how to read a city map properly, how to recognize important signs, and how to navigate without using my phone. Most importantly, getting lost had helped me improve my English. I had learned new words, practiced speaking with strangers, and gained confidence in my ability to communicate. If I had never gotten lost, I might not have had this experience. I realized that sometimes making mistakes or facing difficulties is the best way to learn. When we are too comfortable, we don't challenge ourselves. But when we face problems, we grow. I thought about other situations in life. What if I made a mistake while speaking English? What if I said the wrong word or used incorrect grammar? Before, I might have felt embarrassed. But now, I understood that mistakes are part of learning. Just like getting lost in the city, making small errors in English is not a disaster. It's an opportunity to improve. I smiled to myself. I started today thinking I was just going for a walk. But instead, I learned an important life lesson. As I sat there in the hotel lobby, I promised myself two things. I would never be afraid to ask for help in English again. Even if I made mistakes, it was okay. People understood me, and that was what really mattered. I would always see challenges as learning opportunities. Getting lost, making mistakes, feeling nervous, these things were not bad. They were just steps in the journey of learning and improving. I stood up and stretched. It had been a long day, but it had been a good day. I walked up to my hotel room, feeling more confident than ever. Tomorrow, I would explore the city again, but this time, I would be even more prepared. And who knows? Maybe I would even try to help another lost traveler, just like people had helped me today. Because now, I understood something important. Every challenge is an opportunity to learn, grow, and become better. After finding my way back to the hotel, I realized that getting lost had not only helped me learn English, but had also given me a new perspective on exploring new places. Instead of feeling afraid, I started to feel excited about the idea of discovering things on my own. The next morning, I woke up feeling fresh and ready for a new adventure. But this time, I had a plan. I made sure my phone was fully charged, wrote down my hotel's name and address, and carried a small map with me, just in case. As I stepped out into the busy city streets, I decided to do something different. Instead of following a fixed plan, I would walk around and see where the streets would take me. However, I had one rule. I would only use English to talk to people. As I walked, I noticed a small cafe on the corner of a street. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, and I saw a few people sitting outside, enjoying their drinks. I decided to go in and order something. I walked up to the counter and said, "Hello, I'd like a cup of coffee, please." The barista smiled and asked, "What kind of coffee would you like?" For a moment, I hesitated. I wasn't sure about the different types of coffee in English. But instead of feeling nervous, I decided to ask, "Can you tell me what kinds you have?" She happily explained, "We have espresso, cappuccino, latte, and Americano." I smiled. "I'll have a latte, please." As I waited for my coffee, I felt a sense of accomplishment. Just a day ago, I had felt nervous speaking English, but now I was having a normal conversation with confidence. After finishing my coffee, I continued walking and came across a beautiful park. It was filled with green trees, colorful flowers, and a small fountain in the center. People were walking, jogging, and sitting on benches reading books. I noticed a man sitting on a bench, feeding pigeons. He looked friendly, so I decided to try starting a conversation. "Good morning. The weather is nice today, isn't it?" I said. The man looked up and smiled. "Yes, it's a beautiful day. Are you visiting the city?" I learned a lot from it. The man laughed. "That's the best way to explore a new place. You remember things better when you experience them." We continued talking for a few minutes. He told me about some hidden places in the city that most tourists don't know about. I listened carefully, feeling excited to visit them. Before I left, he said, "Enjoy your time here, and don't be afraid to talk to people. You'll learn so much more that way." I thanked him and walked away, feeling even more confident. As I walked down another street, I saw a small market with different stalls selling fresh fruits, vegetables, clothes, and handmade items. The market was full of life. People were talking, bargaining, and laughing. I decided to buy some fruit. I walked up to a stall with fresh oranges and bananas and greeted the vendor. "Hello, how much are the oranges?" I asked. $2 for one, $5 for three, he replied. I thought for a moment and said, "Okay, I'll take three." He gave me the oranges, and I paid him. Before I left, he smiled and said, "You speak good English. That made me happy." "Thank you. I'm still learning." As the day continued, I kept exploring, talking to people, and using English. I asked for directions, ordered food, and even helped another tourist who was looking for a famous landmark. I felt like I was not just a visitor. I was part of the city. By the time I returned to my hotel, I had a big smile on my face. This time, I wasn't lost. I had discovered new places, met interesting people, and most importantly, gained confidence in myself. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about everything that had happened. Getting lost was scary at first, but it had turned into an amazing experience. It had taught me that every challenge is an opportunity to learn. From that moment on, I promised myself one thing. I would never be afraid to explore, to make mistakes, and to keep learning every day.